with the consistency at playing such a high level comes the injuries, the knocks, the staying motivated when things are not going your way, when you're not getting that rub of the green. No doubt you've dealt with some and come back from some very serious injuries in your career. Yeah. Could you talk to us a little bit about the dark times and how you sort of motivated yourself to keep on keeping on?
Well, that was, 6 months after that goal pretty much, or pretty soon after that. So we finished 6th in the league with Blackburn, done my cruciate ligament, took a bit of the cartilage from the bone as well. So that was the moment from the highs of finally sort of breaking in, establish my position in the team, regular in the Ireland squad, to, although medical advances have kicked on massively and cruciate ligament now is pretty straightforward surgery, it can still be a career-threatening injury. So that was 7 months out. So I got back from that cruciate ligament injury, got back for 20 games, and then because of the issue with the cartilage, I had to have another surgery in America. I was out for 11 months. And that was real tough times. That leg had pretty much wasted away because I couldn't weight bear for 2 months, couldn't jog for 6 months. So that was moments where you question whether you're going to get back. Remember at the time, the national team manager, Tony, kind of questioned whether I'd get back to top level. And I had to adapt then. I did actually, from that moment, almost have to become a different player because...
The way you played, the way you went into tackles, the way you trained?
No, that was never a problem. Even despite all the injuries, I would train hard, which, again, was probably a bit of a downfall. A couple of managers at times had to pull me and tell me to manage myself a little bit better in training. Don't have to fly into tackles in training at 100% because I was injuring a couple of times, injured myself, and spent more time on the sidelines. I had to, with the injuries and with the knee, I'd lost a bit of that athleticism, that mobility.
That yard of quickness.
Yeah, definitely. So ended up pretty much from that moment, had to adapt my game, and I ended up dropping in at right back for the last 6-7 years of my career. Pretty much, from that moment, it was about managing my career till the end. That was the moment where, it was difficult. It was difficult. That centre midfield, sort of mobile, athletic player, unfortunately, you had to adapt your game into something a little bit different. Use your brain a little bit more. Talk to the players in front. Maybe get them to make your job a little bit easier. Good for the team, obviously, but you're almost becoming a coach in a way on the pitch.
Having run your time at Blackburn, so to speak, and then coming to the decision to move on to another club, no doubt there was...
It wasn't actually my decision.
A lot of options. Yeah. Can you talk us through how that process came about?
Well, after that 11-month injury layoff, I got back playing. Sam Allardyce was manager at this point, and it was pretty obvious at that time that I wasn't really going to be part of the plan. So I had a loan move to QPR for a month, played my first 90 minutes after a year, and after that moment I thought that was it, because for a week after that game I couldn't hardly walk, had to get the strongest anti-inflammatories that were the strongest that you could take, basically as almost a last resort. Let's see how this goes, see if it settles down. That was the moment I thought this could be it. This could be the end. I went to see the family, mum and dad, and the missus as well. I said, I think I could be finished now. The knee feels the same as it did 10, 11 months ago. It doesn't feel any better. But as time went on, played more games. At the end of that season, Blackburn got released by Blackburn, but luckily I had a loan move to West Brom at the end of that. Can't remember which season it was, but we had a loan move last 2 months of the season to West Brom, played 10 games and ended up, luckily, signing a permanent deal there just after we got promoted to the Premier League with West Brom. And then, onto the next stage of my career there pretty much as a right back at West Brom, which ended up being 4 years.
Start of a new journey, start of a new era, working under Roy Hodgson as well, such a respected character in the game, someone that's been there and done it before. Did he help you make that transition into right back, and did you enjoy playing under Roy?
Well, I signed under Robbie Di Matteo, so played back end of the Championship promotion season, but Premier League started the season, didn't really play at all. I think I started one or two games, but then Roy came in at the back end of that season, and it was pretty clear straight away that I was playing. He wanted reliable. That's what he wants. He wants players that are reliable, will give 7 out of 10s every week, know what you're getting, type of player. So I was a massive part of. Any time I was fit, I pretty much played. Had a great relationship with him. Sometimes on the side when I was playing, we'd have a little discussion and felt valued. And that was probably round about the time with the knee that really started to think about what's going to be next. I pretty much knew for the last 4 or 5 years, it was almost year to year, getting through each season because the knee was in such a bad way that I knew it was coming to the end. So by that stage, I was on the coaching journey, getting my badges, starting to, make notes about sessions, getting to the managers, the coaches, get a little bit more tactical understanding, what's going on, thinking about why we're doing a certain training session. And Roy is a big influence in that, because although at that stage I was about 30, 31, felt like I was learning more than maybe the previous 10 years.
Well, there's probably something in that, having seen you work under Roy. He then went on to become the England manager. Did you know at that time that working with Roy that you could see him going on again to bigger avenues, bigger projects?
Yeah, I could, because West Brom was after Liverpool, where he had a difficult time. It was, got the sack, I think only a few months into that, and I think he just wanted to get back. He's still to this day probably the most enthusiastic football person that I know in the game, despite his age. Not that you shouldn't be at that age, but, he's enthusiasm every single day as a manager, working alongside him as a coach. And, yeah, I could see why he had such great success, managed all over the world. And although we was all devastated when he left, obviously got the opportunity to manage England, and that was, it just really enjoyed that spell. And obviously because of that connection we had later on down the line, we'd go on to coach alongside him, and luckily spent some time on his coaching staff.
As you mentioned, after leaving West Brom, you went to play 6 games for Burnley. Was that a realisation that you couldn't do what you wanted to do physically anymore at that time?
Oh, definitely was. I'm really close with Dyche. He's probably my biggest mentor. He's my go-to person when I want an opinion.
For those that are not familiar with Dyche, the terminology, explain to the viewers who you may be talking about.
Yeah, Burnley manager Sean Dyche. I played alongside him when I was at Millwall. Always stayed in touch with him throughout my career. And then when I did leave West Brom, I thought possibly I might be ready to finish then. There was a possibility if Steve Clarke was still at West Brom that I would have been on his staff at West Brom. Unfortunately, he got the sack. It's 5-6 months, and that's football. Already I think in this discussion I'm talking about managers getting the sack, but it's so frequent that it's just part of the game. Yeah, but after West Brom, spoke with Dyche. He said, "Look, come in for a year. Kieran Trippier's going to play, obviously top fullback, and gone on to become again one of the top fullbacks in the league," which suited me. I knew at that stage probably my best years were behind me, but I still just made a point of being a good pro in the dressing room, helping the younger players, trying to lead by example in how I'd gone about my business as a professional footballer. And I enjoyed the dressing room, the culture that he had created at the club. The environment was top class. Reminded me a little bit of my time at Millwall back in back in the day, that togetherness of the squad. Last season at West Brom, I just felt that I'd gone a little bit at my time at the club. The dressing room probably wasn't quite right. So it was quite refreshing going into that Burnley one. But physically, I knew it'd be my last season. I rung Dyche. We had a little coffee out away from the training ground. I said, I'm going to call it a day at the end of the season. He didn't try and convince me otherwise, which
never a good sign.
Which is not never a good sign. It's not a good sign. But really good, enjoyable time. Just the environment was great, and at least I went out last season. But in the lead up to that last season at Burnley, I already knew I had a coaching role in place with Steve Clarke at Reading. So I was going to finish playing and then was straight on to the next chapter of my football career.
Talk to me about that transition, going from player, sort of being everyone doing everything for you to a certain respect, to then being the person in charge of other people, to then the person giving advice and guiding them, nurturing the younger players. How did you handle that transition at Reading?
Pretty easily, I would say. I still, probably the difficult bit was the going from player to coach. You've got to draw the line. You're now on the other side.
You're not one of the lads anymore, so to speak, are you?
You're not. There was a moment in pre-season where, up until that point, maybe I felt a little bit that I was a bit too, on that side of the fence, still maybe in your mind thinking you're still a player. But there was a moment in pre-season where I just lost it. Just lost it completely with something that I'd seen in the session, sent all the lads in from training, towards the end of a session. I think that was the moment where you do draw the line, and I think the players then, I think they respect that as well. You're not here to be their mate. You're now on the coaching staff, and we're here to now get results. What I saw was something that I didn't see was going to get us results, and the attitude this player in particular was showing. So, just lost my head completely. Called a halt to the session. I think Steve Clarke quite enjoyed it as well. I looked over and he kind of went, I don't mind a bit of that now and again.
Do you think the coaches sometimes are there to sort of ruffle things up so the manager doesn't have to get involved in that level of dispute? So the coaches are playing the bad guy, if you like, so to speak.
It can be the other way around. Sometimes the manager's the good guy and the coach is the good cop, bad cop. You get that as well. It doesn't always have to be the manager's the one to deliver the bad news, and it's useful if you've got that in your locker to do that, but it can work. It can work either way, and I think if you get the right staff around, I think something definitely looking forward for me would be to get staff in that can do what you can't. If you've got a weakness in a certain area, which we all have, it's important you've got someone there to be that person that can fill that role. That's probably part of the reason why I was brought in at Reading, was because I was current, because I played against and with some of that squad. You've got that connection, and with social media, with all of that going on, I was current and on those platforms, and that is something a lot of the older managers now have not quite got. Like Steve Clarke at that point, wanted a younger coach. We had, again, a good connection. Although Steve got the sack in the December, I think it's important that you've got a staff that can fill different roles.
Just like to mention our sort of full core football, we're specialists in 4-4-2. So that's our tactical astuteness. If you need our help, we're happy to give you a little bit of guidance and sort of recommendation on tactics and stuff.
But what I would say is I've just mentioned, obviously, Steve Clarke, and after that was Roy Hodgson. So within 2 years of playing, I'd worked alongside two of my former managers. So that's the advice I try and give to players now, is basically don't be a dickhead when you're a player. Don't expect, if you're not doing things right, if you're not training right, if you're not a good influence around the training ground, you can't then finish playing and expect opportunities to land on your door. Something that I was doing as a player was something that they saw. I want that person on my staff. It's massive, especially in football, because you see a lot now, players that finish, and it is difficult to get in. Roles in football. There's not many, but do all you can when you're playing. The bigger picture is that you might get an opportunity when you finish.
Comes sort of a saying that my old Glaswegian nan used to tell me, God bless her. You meet the same people on the way up as you do on the way down.
Yeah, no, exactly, and something. The way you go about your business, your behaviour, are you respectful in the not only in the dressing room but in the training ground to the cleaners, to the kitchen staff, to the security guys. People see that, and people want good people and respectful people on their staff. Or that's for me. That's in every walk. That's not just football. That's every walk of life.
I want to talk a little bit about you being reunited with Roy Hodgson. Big opportunity for yourself at Crystal Palace. As you mentioned, bringing something different into the coaching setup there. Can you sort of talk to us about what's gone on at Palace and where you are now in terms of moving forward with your coaching and how things stand?
Well, that kind of came about through a friend of mine, actually. I'd always kind of stayed in contact with Roy. Would be the odd text message backwards and forwards, but when he got the job, I didn't really, because at that moment I just left Reading, was taking a bit of time out from the game, but after 4 games, Frank de Boer got the sack at Palace. Roy went in. Someone made contact with someone at the club at Palace. A couple of phone calls later, a couple of days later, I'm in. Spoke with Roy. Obviously wanted a younger coach alongside him. He had Gary Neville with him for his 4 years at England. So Roy and Ray Lewington as his assistant. My name got thrown in. We had a phone call, a meeting. I started within a couple of days. That's how quickly it happened. And we went into a situation, 4 games in, no goals scored, no points on the table. 3 games after we went in, 7 games, no goals, no points, and no teams ever escaped from that in the Premier League. So it was a big challenge, but good quality players, Roy's coaching, and hopefully some of the things that we did around the place. Well, it did end up being enough to finally get comfortably safe in the end. But watching Roy operate, the way he worked, not only when I was a player and he was the manager, but just seeing how he is, seeing his enthusiasm for the game. Again, respectful environment was massive. He's got time for everyone, old, young, injured. He's in the physio room every morning checking everyone's all right. That's not all people might think, well, that's a given for all managers. It's not. Sometimes when you're injured, you don't see the manager. They're just concentrating on the squad. Roy's got time for everyone, and it was a pleasure to work alongside him and Ray. But just felt last summer, just got to a stage in my life and in my career where there was, other things going on, away from football that I needed to give, a little bit of time to. I lost a real close friend of mine, which was a tough time. Other issues as well that I just felt I needed to take a break from it to deal with those issues going on and to just get the buzz back again, just to take a break from it, and more importantly to spend some time with the family, because we've already spoken about all the troubles with injuries and that takes its toll on the family. They're the ones that suffer a lot of the time, because you're in a place where you're battling back to fitness. Am I going to get back playing again?
Your mind's thinking about so many things other than family life, isn't
it? Your days off where you should be enjoying it with your kids and your family are not, because I'm sat at home icing my knee trying to get fit for the weekend. You're focusing on your football and your career, and you sort of sometimes lose sight of what ultimately is more important than football and is your family life and the kids, and always will be. So, I spent some time over the last 8 months, continuing my learning as well, been in a few clubs, gone to a lot of games, and now, probably feel now's the right time to, got the buzz back again, sort of refreshed and ready to, kind of miss being out there and that contact with the players every day and being out there on the grass. And yeah, I think now's maybe the right time to get back into it, but sometimes you need to take that, I wouldn't even say it's a step back. For me, it's probably a step forward into realising what's important, getting that buzz back and, maybe then kicking on into the next stage, whatever that might be.
Do you see going back and working at Crystal Palace as a sort of real genuine option for yourself, or are you now going to be looking at other options?
I don't know. I've still, over the years, sort of dipped my toe into a little bit of media work, which will probably still be ongoing. I've completed my pro license. Even that process, that's been a 5-6 year process of doing your UEFA B license, A license. I was straight onto my pro license. Been to a few PFA and FA events, presented on a couple of them, my sort of story, coaching journey. So
presenting skills is very good, I've got to say. I've got to say, you kind of put me to shame a little bit with the presenting standards.
So it's, so yeah, whatever. Who knows regarding Crystal Palace? Who knows? But hopefully, other connections that I've made. I feel at this moment now, having taken the break, that actually at some stage I do feel ready now to have a go at it myself. A management role somewhere down the line. But I think maybe coming out of it has made me realise that, to then, that's what I want to do.